I set my alarm for 3:50 in the morning today. Not because I had to, because there was a chance, just a chance, that if I got up early enough and stepped out onto the right side of the cruise ship balcony, I might see the Statue of Liberty before anyone else on the ship was even awake. Setting an alarm for 3:50 in the morning is not, generally speaking, a reasonable thing to do to yourself. I'm aware of that. I did it anyway. I didn't even know which way my balcony faced. I didn't know if I'd see anything at all. So let me ask you something before we go any further. Something I've been sitting with all morning. Something that's about to get answered twice before this day is even over, in two completely different ways. If somebody stopped you on the street right now and asked you to describe home, would you point to a place? Would you point to a person? Or would you point to something harder to put your finger on? Something closer to a feeling of familiarity than an actual address? Hi everyone, I'm Laura and welcome to Sunrise at Sea. Today we're arriving into New York Harbor, United States. Out here, we're still a little while from land. The kind of early dark where the day hasn't decided yet what it's going to be. There's a particular kind of quiet in that stretch of morning, before the sky commits to anything, before I know exactly what I'm going to see when I finally step outside. It doesn't matter how many mornings I've done this by now, how many sunrises I've watched from a balcony that changes every day. That not knowing still gets me every single time, the same way it did the very first time. There's a gratitude in it too, in that stretch before the day has asked anything of me yet, before it's decided what kind of day it's going to be. It doesn't change depending on which ocean I happen to be sitting above when I receive it. New York Harbor has been the entry point for millions of people arriving in this country for over a century. The Statue of Liberty standing at the mouth of it since 1886, her lifted torch often the very first thing travelers saw of America. It's an arrival that people have imagined and rehearsed in their heads long before they ever actually see it for themselves. So here's what actually happened this morning. I heard we'd be passing the Statue of Liberty on the way in, but I had no idea which side of the ship my balcony faced, and there was a real chance I'd miss the whole thing entirely and never even know it. 3:50 came, and it was still fully dark out. That particular dark where the water and the sky are basically the same color, and you can't tell where one ends and the other begins. I could barely make out a few flickering lights way off in the distance. Nothing more than that. Nothing that told me anything yet. I had a little time before we'd actually get close, so I jumped in the shower, half still wondering whether I'd see anything at all, half just trying to get myself ready for the long travel day ahead, because today I get to see my family, and the whole time I was in there, I could hear it starting outside. Other passengers stepping out onto their own balconies, doors sliding open up and down the ship one after another, all of us waking up for the exact same reason, all of us hoping for the exact same thing, none of us saying a word to each other, just the whole ship quietly getting up in the dark together. And then I stepped back outside myself. Two things hit me at that exact same moment. It was warm, actually warm, the kind of warm I hadn't felt in months, the kind that gets into your shoulders before you've even registered it. And there she was, fully visible now, the Statue of Liberty, right there in front of me, closer than I expected. More solid and more real than the postcard version I've had in my head my whole life. And underneath all of it, underneath the warmth and the view and the sound of other people waking up around me, there was this deep, unmistakable feeling of coming home. I wonder if you've ever felt that exact thing. Not relief exactly. Something warmer than relief. That specific feeling of finally, after being gone a long time, when your whole body seems to exhale at once before your mind even catches up to why. Here's something I've noticed. Traveling as much as I have, when you meet people all over the world, especially in Asia, and especially during the time I lived in India, and you ask them where they most want to go someday, almost everybody says the same thing: New York, every single time, without much hesitation. Los Angeles comes up too sometimes. LA, usually because of the Lakers, of all things. I can never quite figure out why that one specifically always comes up, but it does, over and over in conversations that have nothing to do with basketball otherwise. And I find that so interesting, because there are so many incredible places in this country, places most of those same people have never even heard the names of. But New York is the one everybody names, the one everybody already has pictures of in their head, because before they've ever been. I think it's the movies, honestly. I think it's whatever New York represents in people's heads, long before they've ever actually stood in it themselves. This idea of a place rather than the place itself. It's a funny thing to sit with, actually. Arriving into the one city that so many people around the world treat as the destination. The whole point. The place that means you've made it somewhere. The Big Apple. And meanwhile, I'm standing on this balcony not thinking about the city at all. I'm thinking about a Mazda SUV that hasn't even left the driveway yet. And here's the thing. When I think of home, I don't think of New York. I've never even lived there. When I picture home, I picture where my family and friends are. I picture the people and the faces I love. My childhood was in Connecticut. A lot of my adult life was in Arizona, and a little bit of it in Washington State. And what I picture isn't some big landmark. No monuments, no skylines, nothing you'd put on a postcard. It's the ordinary stuff. Having breakfast, going to school, being a kid, being a parent, going to work. Not exactly a highlight reel. But that's how it usually works, isn't it? The memory that sticks is rarely the dramatic one. My son Austin was born at a hospital in Scottsdale, Arizona, and that memory still feels like home to me every single time it surfaces, all these years later. Sometimes there are harder memories mixed in there too. I think about my parents who have passed and are buried so close to that same hospital, and that brings a different kind of feeling with it. Quieter, heavier, not something I dwell on, but something that's definitely there. But that's not what shows up most. Mostly it's the ordinary, happy stuff, and that's what today feels like too. I know the people around me will speak English. I know the food will be familiar. I'll understand the menus. I'll understand the street signs. I won't have to think twice about any of it. Not one small decision that requires translation. That sense of just knowing, that sense of security, feels amazing, honestly, in a way I think you don't fully appreciate until you've spent a while without it, until not knowing has become the normal state, and knowing feels like a small luxury again. I imagine some of you know exactly what that feels like. That specific relief of being somewhere that doesn't require any translation, in any sense of the word. Not the language, not the customs, not even the small daily decisions that usually take extra effort somewhere new. But here's what I actually want to talk to you about today. What happens when your version of home changes? Maybe your kids have moved out and the house feels different now. Quieter in a way you didn't expect and aren't sure you even like yet. Rooms you walk past instead of into. A kitchen table with 2 fewer chairs pulled up to it most nights. Maybe you've downsized from a big house full of years of memories into something smaller. A condo, an apartment, and you're still learning where things go. still reaching for a light switch that used to be somewhere else. Maybe you moved somewhere entirely new. Florida, another state, another country, a fresh start you chose, or one that got chosen for you. And the street outside your window doesn't sound like anything yet. Or maybe, like me, you decided to let go of a fixed address altogether and build a life that moves, one ship or one city at a time. Almost 2 years of that for me now. I don't call that homeless. I call it home free. Free of an address, not free of home. Those are two very different things, even though they get treated like the same one far too often. And I think that mix-up is exactly where a lot of the fear comes from. The fear that losing the address means losing the home itself. I found this out for real when I lived in India for a while. I spent months, genuinely months, weekend after weekend, going from furniture shop to furniture shop, picking out pieces one at a time, comparing options. I had no real frame of reference for yet, trying to build a space that actually felt like home, in a place that didn't feel like anything close to it yet. It mattered even more because I was working from home at the same time. So that space wasn't just where I slept, it was everything. Every hour of my day happened inside those walls. And it mattered even more because everything around me was so unfamiliar. The smells were unfamiliar, the sounds were unfamiliar, the traditions, the language, even the street signs. None of it was anything I recognized on sight. None of it gave me anything to lean on. But I wanted my own space to feel like mine. I wanted it to feel that way, especially for the times my family came to visit, so that even in a country that felt completely foreign to me and to them, there was one room where nothing had to be explained, nothing had to be translated, nothing had to be figured out first. One space that was just ours. I remember the specific satisfaction on the day I stopped noticing the apartment as unfamiliar, the day it just became where I lived instead of somewhere I was staying. Nobody tells you there's a threshold like that. A day it quietly flips over from foreign to familiar. But there is, and you usually only notice it in hindsight, once you're already well on the other side of it, looking back at the version of you who is still shopping for the right chair. A leather reclining chair, to be honest. Maybe you've done a version of that too. Maybe it wasn't furniture. Maybe it was a certain smell, a certain playlist, a certain coffee mug you refuse to travel without. Something that has nothing to do with the size of the space and everything to do with what's in it. Something small that quietly does the job of making an unfamiliar place feel like yours. But I have to tell you what actually happened later today, because it's the thing that answered my own question better than anything I could have written in advance. My flight home was not simple. There was already a gap between disembarking the cruise ship and my flight time. So I got to the airport 7 hours early, and then we got delayed at the gate for another few hours. Once we finally boarded, believe it or not, we sat there for almost 2 more hours, getting an update every 15 minutes from the captain because there was lightning somewhere nearby and they couldn't clear us for takeoff. We just sat on the tarmac, the plane fully boarded, going nowhere. The same voice coming over the speaker every quarter hour with basically nothing new to say. And the whole time, I wasn't really thinking about how tired I was or how long the day had already been. I was thinking about my son Austin, because he was planning to come pick me up around 8 that evening. And now it was going to be closer to 1 in the morning. And I hated the idea of him driving through the dark in the middle of the night on my account. After years of business travel and personal travel all over the world, a few hours of delay genuinely does not rattle me anymore. I've sat through far worse, far longer, in far less comfortable seats. But this one had something waiting on the other end of it, and that changed everything about how it felt, sitting there watching the delay stretch out minute by minute. When I finally messaged him, fully expecting some frustration, or at least a tired response, he just said, "No problem, Mom." He wasn't annoyed about the hour. He was worried about me, worried that I was exhausted, worried that the delays had been hard on me after such a long stretch being away. And that's the part that actually got me, more than the lightning, more than the tarmac. Both of us, late in the evening, more concerned about the other person's night than our own. The flight ended up being pretty smooth once we were finally in the air. No turbulence, no more delays, just quiet dark sky the whole way. I landed, got my luggage, walked outside into that particular kind of late night stillness airports have, and stood there waiting the way you do, scanning every car that pulls up, checking out those headlights, trying to see if you recognize it, half expecting to have to squint to make sure. And then I saw it, his blue Mazda SUV, pulling up right in front of me, headlights cutting across the pickup lane. Just the sight of that particular car, and I felt safe and at peace and excited all at the same time, before he'd even gotten out of it, before I'd even seen his face through the front window. And then he came around the back of the car, and I hugged him, and I did not want to let go. I think he was already ready to be done with that hug well before I was. And I remember saying out loud, "Wait, I'm not done yet," because it had been so long, way too long, and I never wanted to be that long again. That's the moment that actually answered my own question for me. More than the Statue of Liberty, more than the harbor, more than any of it. The greatest joy in life is reconnecting with what home actually is in your heart. And for me, it comes with a very specific order. People first, then the feeling, then the place. Not the comfortable furniture, not the same shows on Netflix every night, not the routine of a Sunday. People first, because the places change. The furniture changes, the whole backdrop of your life can change completely and repeatedly. But the people are actually what anchors your heart, wherever in the world you happen to be. Wherever in the world you happen to be standing when you need them. It's a strange thing to realize on a night like that one, standing in a pickup lane at 1 a.m, more tired than I admit to almost anyone, that none of the delay actually mattered once the hug started. Not the airport, not the lightning, not the 2 hours on the tarmac, watching the minutes tick by. All of that just became the story you tell later, the inconvenience that makes a reunion mean more once it finally happens. The home-free version of my life means I don't get a permanent living room to walk back into. I get moments like that one instead, scattered further apart than most people's, but somehow more concentrated for it. I imagine some of you had a version of that hug too. That moment when the wait finally ends and you get to hold onto someone a little longer than feels normal, because normal isn't the point anymore. And if none of this is in your life right now, if you've never moved, if your address has stayed exactly the same for 30 years, this still counts for you too, because eventually something changes for all of us. A job changes, kids grow up and leave, a relationship ends or begins, somebody you love is no longer where they used to be, or somebody new arrives who becomes exactly that. None of us get to keep every version of home we've ever had. And when that happens, whenever it happens, you get to ask yourself this exact same question. And I hope you land on the same answer I did today. Home was never the address. It never was. People first, then the feeling, then the place. That's the actual order. And once you know it, you can rebuild home anywhere, the moment you decide to, with almost nothing but the people willing to stand in it with you. You don't need the house or the neighborhood or the same zip code you grew up with. You need the people, and the rest tends to sort itself out around them. So here's what I'd actually ask you to do this week. Reach out to one person who feels like home to you and tell them so. It doesn't have to be a big speech, and it definitely doesn't have to be an airport reunion at 1 a.m. to matter. A call, a text, 5 extra minutes on the phone you'd normally rush off of. Let the hug last a little longer than feels necessary, literally or figuratively. Notice the version of it that's smaller and quieter than mine was today, because those count just as much. Home isn't sitting somewhere else waiting for you to arrive to it. This week, you can hand a piece of it to someone in person, the same way it just got handed to me in a parking lot at 1 a.m. I'd genuinely love to know who that person is for you. Tell me in the comments. I read every single one, and I think a lot of us could use a reminder of who it is that actually makes a place feel like home, especially on the weeks and days that it's just a lot harder to remember. Take good care of yourself this week, and I'll see you next Sunday from wherever the sea takes us.